Hi y'all, what's up? I'm just chilling, getting ready to go to bed soon, and the videos I've been making have really been churning a lot up in my mind, going over just everything in my life, but I want to focus on something that is good this time. So here goes. Growing up, we weren't rich. My mom and dad both worked, and we had everything we needed, of course. Um, I never ever really wanted for anything. If I asked for something, maybe I didn't get it right away, but I usually got it for like birthday or Christmas or something. So, if there was something I really wanted, my parents always got it for me. And looking back after having my own kids, and knowing Santa Claus was really my parents, and knowing what they did for me, even though, you know, they also struggled and times were difficult over the years, but they still did all of that. Makes me appreciate it all even more. After we moved here to Virginia and Daddy retired, um, my mom worked, and of course Dad worked, so you know I couldn't do any after school activities because there was no after school bus. So if I missed the bus and and stayed at school, I'd have no way to get home because that's a 15-mile drive to get from the school to the house. And it's not like I could just say, oh, okay, I'm going to walk home. It didn't work that way. So, in 82 or 83, my mom opened a restaurant. And I had the privilege of being able to work there on weekends and holidays. I waitressed. I wasn't really allowed to do any of the cooking, but I definitely waitressed. And I was 8th grade at the time, so I think I was like 12 or 13, I guess. And I got to keep all the tips that I made. And where the restaurant was situated, we'd get, people traveling. And at times it would be families that would come in, parents, grandparents, kids, everything like that. And what I would do is I would take the kids and play with them while the parents ate and talked and did all that. And I remember one day I did that and I got a $20 tip just for doing that. And I mean, for a 12, 13-year-old, that's good money. So, that was really satisfying to be able to have my own money. So, you know, unfortunately, the restaurant ended up closing after a little bit of time. So, my grandmother also owned a restaurant. It was a kind of fast food joint. It was right across from the school. And after my mom's restaurant closed, I went to the state and got a license to be able to work before I was 16. And there were rules. I could only work so many hours and only between certain hours on certain days. But you know, I started working for her, and that's when I really learned more about cooking and how things ran and just everything. So, during my teenage years, when the people I knew in school were all relying on their parents to buy them everything and to give them money to go do things, I had my own money. And, mom and dad got me everything I'd need for school, everything at all. But if there was, a specific item of clothing, or if I wanted some makeup, then I could go buy it myself. And that was really the beginning of my independence. And then once I graduated high school, right, before I got married, I was actually working 2 jobs. I had gone to cosmetology school during my high school. I would spend half the day at the high school and then get transported to the vocational technical school. So I spent 3 years training to be a cosmetologist. And after I graduated, I took the state license board, passed, and got my license to be a beautician. So I ended up not only working at my grandmother's restaurant, but I also worked in a beauty salon and, continued learning by being there. And pretty much from that point on, I worked 2 jobs almost all the time. And if I didn't have 2 jobs, you can damn well bet I was pulling a hell of a lot of overtime at the one. After I got married, we got out to the beach, and first job I got was working at 7-Eleven. And I started out as a cashier, slowly gaining more and more responsibility. And they finally opened up it was kind of a trial run for the deli, where in the mornings we would do donuts and breakfast items, and then we'd have the regular sandwiches that were available all day long. So I finally started working in that area, and then after a pretty short while, I became the deli manager for that store. And I was so good at making the sandwiches and everything that 3 other stores in the surrounding area would call when their deli people were not working and ask me to specifically come and do their work. So there were a lot of weeks where I was pulling 80 hours in a week. And you talk about some good overtime money. And at the time, I was married, but his money covered all the bills. We didn't have kids. So that money was just, extra. And I could do whatever I wanted to. And I used to be addicted to the claw games. I would spend so much money on those, but I was good at it, and I used to get the cutest stuffed animals. But it was fun, and I mean, I didn't waste all my money, but I'd spend a good bit of it there. But I had a hell of a stuffed animal collection. Um, but even from that point on, I worked two jobs. I ended up leaving 7-Eleven, and when I made the decision to leave, before I quit, I went out, interviewed, and got a job at Montgomery Ward's, which was, similar to Sears and uh, all those kind of places. So I went in, I quit my job at 7-Eleven and started working at Montgomery Ward's. And while I was there, I started working a second job to keep busy. It was at a mailbox rental place where we did, pretty much everything the post office does. So, I'd spend time there and then I'd go to work. And, I was a cashier for Montgomery Wards as well. And then a position opened up in the stock room. And it was an early morning job, which all my time working, I was a morning person. I could get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get ready, go to work for me a full day, and be done with work by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, have the rest of the day to go do whatever I wanted or needed. So, that was ideal for me. I absolutely loved working that shift. So, morning had come, I'd go in and we'd unload the tractor trailers full of boxes of clothing and go through, unhook them, price them, and put them out on the showroom floor. And I was in that job for a couple months, and then I was promoted to stock manager. So, you pay increase and, added responsibility. So it just kind of, every job I've ever had, I've always excelled at it and always end up being promoted quicker than most others, because working for my mother and grandmother, there were high standards because it was restaurant. So you couldn't just clean something half-assed. You had to get down dirty and clean it, or else, the place gets shut down. So I learned a very strong work ethic from them, and it served me my entire life. My the job I wanted to be a career kind of dropped into my lap. I was with my first husband. My oldest son, Chris, was a year old, and I had kind of gotten it in my head I wanted to be a police officer. Now, my eyesight has always been pretty bad. I am very nearsighted, and my vision is 2380. So anything closer than or further from here, I'm blind. uh, but, I decided I wanted to be a police officer, so I applied to Virginia Beach Police Department. And I got immediately turned down. They wouldn't even accept my application because my eyesight was too bad. And their reasoning was, if I get into an altercation and my glasses get knocked off, or contact gets popped out, I'm not going to be able to identify the criminal if I need to. So they wouldn't even accept my application. I know. But not long after that, my husband was told that the Department of Defense was hiring police officers to work there on base. It's a civilian job. You work on the naval base, but you're not military police, and you're certainly not a rent-a-cop. We gave tickets for state violations. We had to go to court in Norfolk, which is where all our cases were heard. There were some things that we did that were handled by the base only, and usually the offender's command would deal with them. But a lot of people like to think of us as rent-a-cops, and we weren't. We were just employed by the federal government. So when the job opened up there, I applied and was accepted. And that really was going to be my lifelong career, I had hoped. When I started the training, the minimum I had to do was 12 push-ups in 2 minutes. I think it was 30 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and run 1.5 miles in 16 minutes, 45 seconds. And when I started the academy, that was the maximum I could do. But by the end of our training, I was the top female. I was doing about 80 to 90 sit-ups in 2 minutes. I think I did about 45 push-ups in 2 minutes, and I'm talking the men's push-ups, not the ladies. And then I ran the 1.5 miles in just under 12 minutes, which, yeah, the men ran faster, but I was definitely in the top of the class on all of that. And of course the academic was it wasn't a breeze, but it wasn't extremely difficult either. And learning everything I needed to was it was intense, but it was good. One of the main things was we were trained by the military personnel on how to shoot a weapon. I had never touched a gun before in my life until then. And we got trained, like I said, by the Marines, who are expert weapons masters. And I did extremely well in it. I didn't have any bad habits that I had to overcome. So whatever they taught me, I learned it that way, and I was very good at shooting. I still am. But it was intense training. A lot of people at the time were being taught to shoot to wound someone. That way you don't kill them. But because we were taught by the Marines, we were trained to do 3 shots. If we had to pull our weapon and fire it, we had to do 3 shots. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. And that's what we did if we had to. The biggest saying on our department, well, pretty much with any police force, I should say, It's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6. And what that means is I'd rather have 12 members of a jury decide my fate than have 6 people carry my casket. And that was the reality of life, because even though we were armed, there were a lot of people coming around there that had much better firepower than we did. We had bulletproof vests, of course. We had Kevlar. But that only protects your chest and abdomen. It doesn't protect your head. And, you know, putting your life on the line every day when you have kids it's a sobering thought. And every time I went to work, my main thought was making sure I came home to my family. And that's pretty much every police officer's thought, is just surviving the day to go home. But even though that was going to be my planned lifelong career, it didn't happen. Which, that's a story for another day. But if you have a job and you're privileged to be able to work, do your best. Don't half-ass things, because if you do, you're going to be known for that. And if you do a job and do it right and well the first time, you'll also be known for that. And that's something much better to be known for. So that's the one thing I'd like y'all to take away from that. If you're going to do something, do it well. Don't just be half-assing everything in life. You go in with every bit of yourself, heart and soul, and just give it all. All right, well, I thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. A fond farewell to you all. Blessed be, and love y'all. Bye.